Oh, hello. Here for another of my stories, are you? Alright. Well, take a seat by the fire with me and let me think back on one of my adventures. Yeah. Some time ago, I had an opportunity to take a trip to a remote island with some friends. Naturally, we jumped at the chance to go camping and hiking in the snow. But our helicopter was overcome by a storm and we crashed into a mountain. I must have lost consciousness, for when I awoke the storm had passed. I thought I would struggle to keep warm, but I did not expect what followed. This is a tale of madness. I found my friend Kelvin, who was injured in the crash. I helped him as best I could. And gathered a few supplies from around the wreckage. I knew it wouldn't be long before we began to starve, die of thirst, or succumb to the cold. We moved quickly upwards to a small abandoned campsite. We found a few of their belongings, and with cold biting at our fingertips, followed their trail into an ice cave, hoping to find help. But we were greeted with only bodies. With little to show for our efforts, we returned to the freezing outdoors. We then consulted our GPS and tried to decide where we could make camp, and if possible, some kind of safe home in this frozen hell. We would also need somewhere with running fresh water that doesn't freeze in the wintertime, that we could boil down and make it safe to drink. We also wanted to build somewhere safe from this weather, and the final concern was food. Fish traps don't work in the winter, as even the ocean life abandons this place. Farming might work, but only in the warmer seasons, and we didn't expect to be here that long. Hunting is possible, but game is scarce in the snowfall. We came across the tortured bodies of 3 companions, all facing into a cave. Peculiarly, one of them carried a slingshot. I did not know what use a slingshot could be in this land, but I would take all the boons I could find. Without the tools to bury these men, and with no desire to encounter the same fate, we left them. We journeyed further still, trying to find sanctuary at some of the spots on our GPS. My injured friend Kelvin spoke little, and I felt alone with my murmuring thoughts amongst the ice. Distracted by the images of the 3 mutilated men, I absent-mindedly cut a rope from a rock. It was a hanged man. Unable to comprehend this nightmare I had entered, I stole from his corpse. Suddenly, through the white snow, I saw a peculiar red smoke. A survivor! But when I arrived, a man was screaming. Silently. Surrounded by his dead comrades, he died before my eyes. Unable to do anything further, I took what I could from the camp, including a large axe. This place was obviously dangerous. I made some makeshift weapons, and lamented further into the frozen woodland. I found even more poor dead on a downed helicopter, resting as quiet as the fallen snow. I trod carefully over the ice, and continued my long march to nowhere. I stopped by a stream to fill a pot that I found. I drank from the water and began to feel sick, uneasy. My mind in shock, my vision began to play tricks on me. I saw dinghies left in ruin in the rocks leading to the ocean. Was there nothing left intact in this place? as I strode along the beach. To my amazement, I hear music. How long had this radio been here? How long ago had this man died? I took what additional supplies I could carry and moved on. But there I saw a life raft loitering not too far from shore. This would provide either a safe means off this island for myself and Kelvin, or there would be someone there in possible need of aid. I swam out against the ocean sun. Seagulls gawked, and its poor occupant, just another life lost here to this island. We found another GPS, some flares, and of all things a pistol. What use is a gun against the snow, I thought, but I took it all the same. I already knew there was more than just a cold here. Having made the journey there, I confidently began my return, swimming to the shore, only to be bitten by something in the ocean. Although I panicked, my survival told me that the shark was only trying to decide if I was a meal or not, and gratefully I had been found wanting of taste. Several times now I had noticed smoke in the distance, but the day was getting late, and Kelvin and I felt it was best to set up camp for the evening. We had gathered enough supplies to survive the day, and we might even try to catch one of those noisy bloody seagulls for breakfast. My bruises were sore, and my bones ached in the cold. I slept heavily that night, and I had a strange dream that I was a tiny man living on a mountain and bathing in a hot spring. I awoke cold to the noise of gulls. But as the day continued, we built a fire and a drying rack for what meat we could get from the seagulls. Although filthy, they were plentiful, and we made preparations for a more permanent home where we could survive the endless snow. We cut logs from the surrounding hillside and collected sticks for fuel. As well as the seagulls, nature had provided us some oysters as fresh as could be imagined. Although we slept rough, the horrors of the previous day seemed to be far away, and we enjoyed each other's company and the work ahead of us. We even made preparations for a makeshift bed. We saw at last what I had suspected. We had a visitor. Rough and growling, he walked into the spikes I'd placed to keep the gulls away from our food and limped away. I fashioned some simple armour from cloth and leaves. It would not protect me much, but it was all I could do to improve my situation. I saw the familiar red smoke again, and again the same silently screaming man. But it couldn't be. It couldn't be the same man. He was already dead. This was just another poor victim of this island, with another flare. Distress flares are all the same. I didn't see where the people that came to Kelvin and I had run to, but the pieces of men around this camp, did they do this? Are they cannibals? The dusk of the second night was closing in. I fetched water from a nearby stream and set a fire. Our small home on the shore was as cozy as could be hoped for, next to the ocean in the middle of winter. I was frightened. I took a short walk along the shoreline and found rotten, soggy bodies stuck on sticks, the same way as the men I found the day before. Not seeing anyone or any immediate threats, I continued to walk along the shore and then into the hills. Dumbfounded, I found a hang glider of all things. I took it. I leapt from the cliffs and soared into the sky. For the first time I had a clear view of my immediate surroundings, a sense of freedom tempered only by the cold. I spied some beach canoes and landed, in the hopes of finding someone. Anyone. Another camp, another radio, the same song, more dead bodies. What has happened here? Some of these people were armed. Why are there corpses in trees? What did this? It doesn't make any sense! I collected what I could and disappeared again into the sky, scraping against the tops of the trees. More dead on sticks. Another boarded cave. I was angry and frightened and curious. I cut the planks from the horrible entrance, chills running through me. Something was in there. I needed to see. Something in the back of my mind, something could not yet articulate, bade me enter the cave, wanting me to explore. Wanting me to know. I equipped my torch as I squeezed through the hole in the earth. Why didn't I just leave? There was more than just military personnel here. I found toys. There had been families. I could hear them breathing. I could hear their footsteps in the water. In all this darkness, this horror. As my thoughts whirled, my mind began again to slip as it did by the waterside. My nightmares appeared as if real. I ran in terror. Senses returning, but out of breath, I stumbled into the unmarked grave of a lost family, limbs scattered about the cave floor. I found a rebreather and perhaps a way out of this cave and the horrors of my mind. But there was something in the water. I knew that sharks do not normally attack people, and so I lay quietly for a moment, attempting to keep calm and steady my breath as best I could. Then I followed the underwater corridor, hoping it would lead me out of the cave and not further in. Fortunately, in short order, I emerged into the ocean not far from the beach. If only I could find another one. If only I could find more, so that Kelvin and I could attempt to leave this island. Could it be? Even more red smoke? It can't be. You can't be. Is this what going crazy feels like? Am I so lost? Off the island. I travelled back to camp to have a hot meal with Kelvin. The tide had come in and our home was literally above the water. It was then I realised it was daytime, yet it was dusk when I had left. So I must have been in that cave all night with my visions. I wondered if there was more I could find with this rebreather. Other caves. I needed to rest, but I was worried for us. If the seagulls ever left, then what would we do for food? I needed to explore more of this island and more of the caves. I wanted to. I gave Kelvin a quick farewell and encouraged him to continue working on establishing a more permanent shelter. After hearing my story, he was happy to stay behind. Broadly speaking, the human animal has 5 basic senses: sight, smell, taste, touch, and hearing. Madness comes when your senses tell you something is so, when it cannot possibly be real. I think this is when I started to understand that I was lost, but not on an island. And yet for some time I still searched for help. A red flare of my own to send up to the sky, so that I did not keep dying alone in my camp, over and over again. I found my way to another cave. I stepped inside to a strangely familiar darkness. The ground strewn with flesh and bones. Rows of skulls lined the walkway. Again, my nightmares returned. But this time, I would not be afraid. I laid traps from Kelvin's handbook. As these hallucinations stepped over the traps, they would vanish as my mind righted itself against that which is real and that which is not. These traps would lie dormant and I would once again be the master of my own mind. But what horror is this? The traps sprang up and caught these monsters, flesh burning, fires alighting the cave. Reality ebbing from my mind into the cave in search of that thing that called me. Down rope and underwater, I knew I needed the rebreather. I knew it. It told me. More planks barred me. These ones rattled like my mind under the encroaching insanity. At last I found an altar, and a what? What is this? What is this thing? This isn't what I seek. There must be more in this cave. I must go further. Running past impossible beasts and terrible sounds. Sometimes I would hurt myself on the stones as I ran through the darkness, and my mind would try to convince me they did it. I found a grappling hook and the way out of the cave. I returned to Kelvin, who had made remarkable progress on our home. Again, I wondered how long I had been away. I had told Kelvin that I went in search of more food, but I had forgotten about it. I prepared for us what I had found in the caves, but I did not tell him what it was that he ate.
Wake up. We're here. Why are you shaking? Are you okay? Wake up. Stand up. There you go. You were dreaming. What's your name?
Weeks passed on the island, and my insanity grew. My nightmares crawled out from under my mind and into the earth. The cannibals came to our home base more and more. Kelvin laid traps and continued to build, and always I looked for more caves. Sometimes I would hear Kelvin talking in his sleep. He just wanted to go home, and despite my madness, or perhaps because of it, I would help him, and if I was very lucky, maybe he would take me home too. In a bunker, I found a tuxedo. I gave it to Kelvin. He put it on as a joke, but then he never took it off again. I think it helped him feel more normal somehow. As the number of days on this island grew, I found myself spending more and more time away from our home. I even returned to the cave where we first encountered the three men. No longer did they appear tortured, only lost, unable to proceed. I used to think that I was the defender of my mind. Sometimes, though, in the long cold nights I would wonder, if madness lurks under the ground, and the cannibals try to stop you from going into the caves, what does that make me? I had found many caves and many curious things, more nightmares, ruins from other lost adventurers, and it seemed to me, when I was most afraid, the dying man with his flare would appear, like a twisted angel trying to comfort me. What does sanctuary look like to a madman? I had found guns and explosives, even a sword, but when I returned home, I found not horror, but sadness. My trespass into insanity had not gone unpunished. This is a cruel land, Kelvin. You were a wonderful friend, the best of companions, and you will be missed. I left Kelvin to be covered by the snowfall and wandered deep into the island, the last of my mind wailing away in the cold. We could have made the means to escape. Why did I forget to leave? Why didn't we leave? It's time to leave this island. I had become adept at gliding these past weeks, and with the rebreather, I might just make it far enough away so that even if I don't survive, at least I won't wash up on the shores of this hell. I climbed a hill with my glider, an invisible weight lifting from me as my feet lifted from the ground. But the grip of madness grew ever tighter, tearing at my mind, controlling my actions. I could move no longer and fell into the ocean. In despair, I swam to the sea floor. The sea tugging at me and my lungs on fire, gasping for breath. How long had I stayed on this island? How long since we crashed? Kelvin, I'll see you soon. I'm going home. Unable to leave, unable to die. Madness was all I had left, and I began to embrace it. As the vestiges of who I was dimmed and vanished like the embers of a burnt-out fire, the world became anew to me. My nightmares, now unwilling to harm, I walked the dark shores, listening to the songs and whispers of the long insane who share my home. The cannibals, those last bastions of sanity in a world without a mind, tormented themselves as they saw another, truly lost to this island. As I woke, I was called to the beach, the last echo of my soul begging me not to go. A great lumbering monster raged against the world, and by the looks of it, I would say they had crashed in a helicopter, driven mad by the island they were attempting to leave, but I would not allow it. Clarity is what happens when you embrace madness. I see it clearly now, as I am but an interloper within my own mind. I am the darkness that pursues my lucid self, the monster hiding just below the surface of your contentment. Go on then. Wherever you tiptoe in your own little world, hide behind the walls of your sanity, light your flares. No one is coming to save you anymore. In time, people returned to the island. They would swim in its mountain springs and camp in its forests. At night they would tell stories around the fire of a man who fell from the sky and built a home here amongst the trees. How he ate his friends and how he lost his mind.